Welcome, guys. This is Basch here bringing you your daily podcast. We got an hour and counting now of this podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Now we are going to get started here with some kind of previewing the World Series here, and this is going to be the only thing I'm basically going to touch on what the World Series does for today. But now you look at the Cubs looking to end a 108-year drought. And, it's a really two teams who aren't historically good, one of the worst in baseball. They're coming up, and they're going to have a good game coming up on Tuesday night where the Indians are going to play at home. And that would correspond. It looks like it's in Cleveland. Yeah, but it's in Progressive Field in Cleveland, Ohio, and that would correspond to the banner of the Cleveland Cavaliers on opening day. So interesting little thing going on there is on Tuesday you get the Cavs season opener against the Knicks. But anyway, so just looking at this. Some key players throughout the series to watch out for. Now, looking back at that Cubs-Dodgers game, 5-0. What a game! Clayton Kershaw didn't really do much in this game, but you take a look. Hendricks had a pretty decent game for the Cubs. But, the Cubs just look good in general. 0 runs, 2 hits, no errors. And Chapman is due to keep an eye on for the Cubs here. And also, Jason Arrieta is going to be healthy on Tuesday, but I wouldn't say he's not healthy, just ready to play on Tuesday, but I don't know what the report is on Jason Arrieta, whether or not he's going to be playing Game 1 or not. You also have Lester there, who was selected as a co-MVP. Javier Baez and John Lester, co-MVP of the NLCS. So I kind of find it like it will be a pretty good matchup, but to me, and I heard this question on ESPN radio yesterday, which would be a bigger story, Chicago ending a 108-year drought, Chicago Cubs, that is, or the Cleveland Cavaliers getting 2 championships in 1 year? For me, it has to be the Cubs, because if you take a look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they won the championship for Cleveland, so it's not like the Indians are doing something new. The Cubs would be doing something new in this term because it is their drought that they are ending, not the city's drought. It's their own drought. So the Cubs, if you're trying to compare the Cubs versus the city, it's absolutely a greater argument for the Cubbies here when it comes to this is a bigger series, bigger World Series for the Cubs. But the Cubs also did end, I believe it was a 78. I could be wrong. 1946 could have been it. The last World Series appearance last year, losing to the Mets, of course, in I believe was the NLCS. Nobody certainly expected this out of the Cleveland Indians coming up this year, though. That's kind of an underdog story. A lot of people expected the Cubs to be one of the better teams in baseball or the best team in baseball, and that's why you see the Chicago Cubs out here. Big day in NFL as we make this transition, and this day in NFL has seen some very, very good games, a lot of one-possession games. You take a look, Giants 17-10 over the Rams, Chiefs 27-21 over Saints, Colts 34-26 over Titans, Lions 20, Redskins 17, Dolphins 28, Bills 25, Jets 24, Ravens 16, Chargers 33, Falcons 30 in overtime. A huge hyped up matchup. So those are the matchups that were one possession. And the Patriots Steelers pretty competitive for a while as it looked. The Raiders certainly. The Jaguars kind of stayed in this game, but Del Rio got his vengeance against his old team out there. So to me, a great day in NFL as the Seahawks and the Cardinals are going at it right now on NBC. I won't know what happens in that game until tomorrow night. Or most of you guys are going to be watching the stream tomorrow morning or sometime during the day on Monday, because this is a Monday stream. Even though the date was messed up, I meant for it to be Monday, but that will be changed. Basically, every podcast will be deleted off the channel when it's been a week. So this time, next Sunday night, this will be deleted. But anyway, going back to what we were talking about with NFL, a big thing that caught my eye was how the Chiefs were able to respond after Jamal Charles coming back. Let's take a look here at KC. They had Spencer Ware going. They had Jamal Charles, only got that one carry. And Alex Smith, decent game, did what he needed to do, 17 for 24, 214 yards, 2 TDs, no picks, certainly taking care of it. No sacks in this game for the D, but Spencer Ware, they rushed for 112 yards, threw for 214 yards, so it wasn't like a crazy offensive performance, but they were able to hold Drew Brees in check, even though he threw for 360 or 359 yards is what the marking is. Certainly, sorry. So 367 isn't so. Certainly, a New Orleans team that has been struggling thus far this year. Who next week has the Seahawks at home. They're 2-4, and they need to get a win there if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive and want to try to hang with the Falcons. Because let's face it right now, it's the Falcons by themselves. Even though they just had that overtime loss. And that overtime loss against the Chargers helped the rest of that division in the NFC South. But the NFC South right now is looking like quite a wreck, with Atlanta sitting at 4-3, Tampa Bay at 3-3, New Orleans at 2-4, and Carolina at 1-5. Carolina on a bye, it looks. Yeah, on a bye this week. Certainly going to need to rebound. This bye couldn't come at a better time after facing adversity. They got the 3-3 Arizona Cardinals, who's playing right now on NBC on Sunday Night Football. Now, if you take a look at how the playoff picture is starting to form, and Pittsburgh still has the advantage in the NFC North after dropping the last 2 games and losing Ben Roethlisberger. You got Baltimore and Cincinnati 1 game behind after today, and Cleveland's 0-7. Cleveland is just Cleveland, and they're the only Cleveland team now that is not doing good, shockingly. That the other 2, well, I would say the other one, any team that LeBron James is on, is going good, but the Indians are actually title contenders, not only contenders 1 game away. A lot of these divisions are wrecks. Some of them are not. None of these divisions are really wrecks, but the AFC North and the NFC South, if you ask me, with a 4-3 Atlanta team in first and a 4-3 Pittsburgh team in both those divisions. Also, the South, you could argue it's a wreck as well, even though it looks like Houston has a clear advantage over Indianapolis. 1 games, even if they lose tomorrow against Denver, they're still 1 game ahead. But that's just 1 win for the Colts. They could take it over, which is another chaotic division because anybody could still win that division. Jacksonville is only 2 games behind Houston right now. Tennessee is 1.5, along with Indianapolis, both sitting at 3-4. And of course, the AFC West could get heated as well because you got Oakland, KC, Denver, who's all sitting at 5 with 2 losses, 5-2, 4-2, 4-2. The Broncos could go 5-2 next week. And right now, the Broncos don't have that tiebreaker against the Raiders right now. Minnesota. Boy, oh boy, Minnesota getting their first loss in a very ugly game, especially in that first half against Philadelphia. Certainly, though, a good, well-deserved win by Philadelphia. But, the Eagles went absolutely after manhandled Sam Bradford today. Even though Sam Bradford did not get hurt, shockingly, because they were out for him. I don't know why they would be. They let him go. But anyway, so right now in the NFC East, you got Dallas, who was sitting home after a bye, seeing Philadelphia, Washington, and the Giants 1.5 game behind. Sorry, the Eagles are 1 game behind at this point, 1.5 for the Giants and Redskins. So now moving on. In a bit, we'll be talking about some college football. AP rankings were released today, and a lot of people may be wondering about that. So we'll be right back in a couple minutes. Stay tuned. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe right now and hit that like button right now if you're enjoying this podcast. We'll be right back in a minute. One week away from the college football playoff rankings coming out on Tuesday of November 1st, I believe it is. I could be wrong, so forgive me if I'm wrong. I'll check the calendar right now, as a matter of fact, on what day exactly. Yep, I was right. It was November 1st. So November 1st is when the college football playoff rankings come out. Now I'm going to read to you guys the top 10 in the AP rankings. I'm not going to read you guys the whole AP rankings because that'll take way too long. I'll take a picture of some notable outside of the top 10, though. You got Alabama 1, Michigan 2, Clemson 3, Washington 4, and that's exactly what I expected. No big shakeup in the top 4 other than Ohio State dropping out, who lost on the road at Penn State in Happy Valley. Now, here's where it gets interesting, 5 through 8. You got 5 Louisville, 6 Ohio State, 7 Nebraska, 8 Baylor. Which, people, what are you thinking? You got Nebraska, who's still undefeated. I guess I can get why they're behind Ohio State because they've had competitive games against Indiana and Purdue, which really shouldn't have been as competitive as it was. And Ohio State really did not play well the last 3 weeks, including that Indiana game, and yet they still beat Indiana by 21. But, I still think you got to get the benefit of the doubt when you're undefeated and in a Power 5 conference. I think Baylor's fine at number 9, actually. I think Baylor should be behind Louisville and Ohio State and Nebraska. But I think they should be behind West Virginia. West Virginia is not getting credit for where it's due during the AP poll. AP poll has them number 10. I don't know why you dropped Wisconsin after a hard-fought battle against Iowa with that win there. I don't know why you wouldn't drop Texas A&M farther than 3 spots because they lost by 3 touchdowns against Alabama. And if you want to be in the top 10, you got to compete with Alabama for 4 quarters. You can't just play one half, compete in 5 minutes. So literally 35 minutes of a 60-minute game. You can't compete for that long and be in the top 10. This is where the people made the mistake. They also made the mistake for having Ohio State ranked so high. Like I said, Baylor, I can understand why. I can understand why they are ranked below, below the Ohio State and Louisville one-loss teams, especially because those losses weren't really bad losses. People are going to argue the Ohio State loss, but looking by the end of the season, we'll realize that, hey, Penn State's not really a bad team. They got killed against Michigan by 39. So what? Florida State lost to Louisville by 39. Oh, sorry, how many was it? 32. So literally a touchdown less, and clearly Penn State's not a Florida State. And that's why the other notables, once again, Wisconsin drops out of the top 10 to number 11, Florida State, number 12 for Louisville, and named Florida State is going to play Clemson in Doak Campbell. Also, you have Oklahoma, once again, another big fat key for Ohio State at number 16. You got Western Michigan there, 20. Watch out. Kidding. And Penn State, number 24. That's a big thing right there. Penn State sitting at number 24 really helps Ohio State because, their resume looks a lot better. I don't know if the committee would keep Penn State in the top 25, but Penn State looked like a pretty good team against Ohio State. You could say if it was in the shoe, then Penn State would have won, which I completely agree. You take a look at last year and then this year, the only big difference I can see is a less experienced quarterback and a more experienced Saquon Barkley this year, which kind of cancels each other out, because when you get the less experienced quarterback and you have a more experienced Saquon Barkley, who's a true sophomore this year, then of course it should cancel each other out. The defense is just about the same, if you ask me. And really, they couldn't compete with Ohio State at all in the shoe last year, other than Saquon Barkley running all over. So if you take a look at big playoff picture, and I think Ohio State's in a better position than Louisville, because you take a look at resume. Louisville has that one win against Florida State. That Houston win's not going to look good anymore. Houston still receiving votes. I don't know why anybody would vote to keep Houston in the top 25, because they are not a top 25 team. But nonetheless, they are unranked right now. So that game's not going to be as impressive as a win if they can get that win against Houston. And, which it still could be a big matchup where Houston could possibly upset Louisville and then get back in the rankings. But, once again, I'm going to get back to this point. You take a look at Clemson's remaining schedule, and this is big key because Clemson is struggling against anybody, so some of these games could be a close call. But you got Florida State, even if they lose in Tallahassee this weekend, they will still have one loss in conference, and that would be equal to the one loss that Louisville has. And since Clemson beat Louisville, Clemson has a tiebreaker, so they need Clemson to lose twice. If Clemson loses twice, that's the only way Louisville gets into the college football playoff. But Ohio State would be better off because they control their own destiny. They win out, they win the Big Ten East, even if Penn State wins out. Because if Penn State wins out, they have one loss in conference, then it would go by overall record, and that's where Penn State would be knocked out, and Ohio State would own the tiebreaker over Michigan due to the head-to-head matchup there. So Ohio State does still control their own destiny. They have to beat Northwestern this weekend, and they have to beat Nebraska. They have to go to a Maryland team who's one win away from bowl eligibility, who has really rebounded from a bad season last year. And then they have to play at Michigan State. Not going to be easy, even though it seems like a cakewalk right now. It should not be easy because Michigan State's going to give them their best shot. And then Michigan, of course, that game, if Ohio State does win until that Michigan game, that game will be hyped up. Winner, a lot of people are going to be saying winners in the playoff, losers out, especially if that loser is Ohio State, because Ohio State's not making the playoff with 2 losses to Michigan and Penn State. That's not going to happen. So, Ransom there. A lot about college football right now. Key matchup next week, Utah plays host against Washington. It's going to be on Fox Sports Network. If you guys can't watch it, certainly feel bad for you, because that would be a great game to pay attention to. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Up next, we'll be going through a little bit of a preview of the NBA plus top 5 power rankings in the NFL right now for Basch Sports. That's coming up next here in a little bit. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to my hour podcast, and I will see you in a minute. Welcome back, NBA season preview coming up now. I'm going to give you guys teams that will be contenders and will be pretenders, going through all 30 teams. So here we go, guys. Now, I'm just doing this randomly, so if your team's last or first, whatever. I'm just doing it by conference and how they look right now. So let's start with Atlanta Hawks. I certainly think they are an Eastern pretender this year. I don't expect too much from this Atlanta team. You know, they aren't crazy, good. I don't really see them competing with the likes of the Cavaliers, Raptors, or the Bulls this year. Certainly, though, pretender. Also, Boston Celtics, once again, going to give them that pretender status. You know, they are a couple years away. Isaiah Thomas is the real deal as a point guard. It's not the old Isaiah Thomas. It's the new Isaiah Thomas. But anyway, yeah, he's a good dude at the point guard position, but they don't have enough depth. And, you know, now we go to Chicago, and yes, I say that they are contenders, but barely a contender. You know, this team is going to be fighting through a lot of adversity this year. Dwayne Wade's getting a little older. Rajon Rondo is not the Rajon Rondo we saw in Boston. Lost Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah. This Bulls team is going to be very good, if you ask me. But they are certainly a little bit away. Denzel Valentine, though, could be the future of the Chicago Bulls, so watch out for him. If somebody makes a trade for Denzel Valentine, I would have to say the Bulls organization is dumb to let him slip away because he's going to be a star in the NBA. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I mean, I think they're a pretender. Kidding, of course. They are, of course, a contender, and they will probably win the East. That's just how it goes when you have a LeBron coach team. JR is coming back once again. It looks like he's going to be fine there. Detroit, I got to say pretender. They are certainly not going to be one of those top three, top-tier teams. Certainly Detroit, just not good enough anymore. This isn't the olden days. Moving to Indiana, and I want to say that these guys are contenders and they could go toe-to-toe against the Cavs in a series, because that's basically what I'm basing this off of, is if you can go toe-to-toe against the Cavaliers right now. I don't see them doing it. I'm going to have to go say that the Pacers right now are a pretender, and I'm also going to say this about the next team, Miami. They are a pretender because that loss of Chris Bosh may hurt, even though Hassan Whiteside is a star. They lost Dwayne Wade, and that was their franchise guy. And, losing Dwayne Wade is not easy to bounce back off of. I think these guys are pretenders this upcoming season. Milwaukee Bucks, they are going in the right direction. Jabari Parker's the real deal, but I do not see the Bucks doing much this year. Pretender. Brooklyn, I don't even have to say anything about the Nets. They are a pretender, and they are going to be just as bad as they were last year, maybe even worse. New York, these guys could be a contender. Carmelo, Joakim, Derrick Rose, you have this team that looks pretty good, on paper. The question is, can Joakim Noah, can Derrick Rose and Kristaps Porzingis stay healthy throughout the course of the season? I don't believe they can, and that's why I'm going to have to say that the Knicks are 1 year away. They are a pretender. Orlando, losing Victor Oladipo, not really what you want to do when you try to make moves. I'm going to have to say pretender to Orlando. Philadelphia, looking to be in the right direction. I think they made a wrong draft pick, though, with picking Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons is a little overrated watching him in college. He couldn't hit perimeter shots. He can get rebounds. He can get blocks. He can get layups and dunks. But he's not a great all-around player. He's a good all-around player, especially for the NBA. He's going to be about average, I think. Ben Simmons is going to be a bust. Moving on to Washington, I believe John Wall is one of the greater point guards in the nation, but that's all they have going for them. I'm going to have to say pretender. Toronto, of course, they're a contender. DeRozan and Lowry are a great one-two punch for Toronto. What can I say? This team, for the Raptors, may be able to get Cleveland this year. Who knows? Charlotte, this is the last team, and I'm going to have to say on the borderline of contender, pretender, but I move him to contender because Kemba Walker is clutch, and Kemba Walker is an amazing point guard, one of the top in the league, if you ask me, at the point guard position. Kemba Walker is a guy to watch out for. Moving to the Pelicans. Pelicans having a lot of issues with injuries in Anthony Davis. I'm going to have to say they are a pretender this year. The Mavericks, Dirk is getting a little old. I don't know how good the Mavericks will be this year, but I certainly know that they will not compete against the Warriors, therefore making them a pretender. Denver, pretender. I don't even have to say anything. Denver, even though they were able to beat Golden State last year, or came very close a couple times as well, I believe that Denver is a pretender, hands down, this year. Golden State, they're the dream team. They are, the super team that was formed with KD. You got KD, Clay, then you got Steph, then you got Draymond, and this team. It doesn't look like there's anybody in NBA history that was better than them, and they broke the best team in history, 72-10 Chicago Bulls record a year ago with a 73-9 record. They could beat that record. I'm not saying they are going to go unbeaten in the regular season because they aren't, but they could beat the 73-1 record. Golden State is definitely contender. I'm going to say this, and a lot of people could give me crap about this. Houston's a pretender, and this is why. Harden he's a very good player. He's a very outstanding player. Always going to be in the MVP talks, but I think there's too many problems in Houston. Management is not well. There's not a good enough supporting cast around James Harden. I'm going to have to call him a pretender. Clippers, I'm going to have to say contender if Blake Griffin stays healthy. These guys are going to be really good. Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan. A few really, really good players there. The Lakers, pretender, of course. The Minnesota Timberwolves, pretender. Don't even have to go there. Phoenix, pretender. Portland, I will probably regret to say this, but I'm going to say pretender, even though Damian Lillard is the real deal and CJ McCollum is the real deal. Sacramento, they're moving in the right direction, but I'm going to have to say maybe that direction is Seattle. But I'm going to have to say Sacramento is a pretender right now, and then San Antonio is always going to be a contender as long as Tony Parker is there, in my eyes. Tony Parker makes the team very good, even though Tim Duncan's gone. OKC, at this point, I don't think they're a contender because it's a one-man show with Russell Westbrook. But I'm going to have to say contender because there's really nothing that I've seen that could tell me that OKC losing KD is going to be the worst thing for them, because they did gain Oladipo, and Oladipo is going to be a great shooting guard to complement Russell Westbrook, in my opinion. Utah, I think, is pretender. They are just not good enough, hands down. Memphis is good enough to be a contender, so I'm going to move them as contender status. Marc Gasol, very, very talented, and Mike Conley, this team looks really good on paper. I don't say that any of these teams are going to beat Cleveland or Golden State, but those are my contenders and pretenders. NFL power rankings through the first 6 weeks. Now, I get that I have not seen a couple teams this week, including Denver and Houston, play this week, and right now Arizona is playing right now against Seattle. But here's my NFL power rankings, the top 5. I'm going to go 1 through 5. And number 1, I have to go with the 6-1 New England Patriots, who right now has the 1 seed in the AFC, and it will probably stay that way with Tom Brady as the quarterback. But, these guys are just crazy good. I don't see how anybody can make the argument that they are not the best team in the league right now. Number 2, I'm going to have to go with Oakland. They've looked really good as of late, and a lot of people may be surprised by my pick to go with Oakland, but that's just because the other teams that I would pick, Minnesota falling, Denver just fell last week. You could also look at, Dallas. You could look at the Cowboys, who is my number 3 team. Dak Prescott doing what he needs to do. They've won 5 straight now, following that opening loss against the Giants. Zeke Elliott's hitting his groove, and Cole Beasley, the next Wes Welker. Number 4, going to have to go with the Seattle Seahawks, even though, once again, they are playing right now, and I don't know if they will win. And I could eat my own words there, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Seahawks, because they may be back this year. Number 5, this one's a little bit of a tougher situation. I could go Denver, I could go KC, could go Minnesota, and I'm going to decide to go that route in Minnesota because they did play a very sloppy game today. But, that defense is better than Denver, in my opinion, this year. And face it, Denver fans, it is true. But Denver will be on the outside looking in. They're number 6. They did not look impressive to me at all in that Chargers victory. That is my power rankings. We have, in counting, just less than 25 minutes left to go in the show. I'll be right back. Stay tuned for some more of this podcast. And yeah. Welcome back to this 1-hour podcast. It'll be ending exactly at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you are listening live. If you're not, you're of course listening to it when it's off air. I would like to say that when you look at the MVP race, it is absolutely heating up when it comes to the NFL. You got Matt Ryan, who's been trending in the wrong direction, especially today in the Chargers loss. Brady was suspended for 4 games, so you can't really make an argument for him, at least yet, because he's only played in 2 games thus far this season. Then you take a look at Shady McCoy. And, I mean, he's a great, solid player, but I don't know if he's exactly MVP worthy. Who else are you going to put there? Dak Prescott. Of course. Peyton Manning. Kidding. I'm not that dumb. I'm not that dumb. But anyway, I just don't know who exactly, if I were to pick somebody, who it would be, because Cam Newton, disappointment, the former MVP. Aaron Rodgers has not been the same bad man as Stephen A. Smith from ESPN calls him. Matt Ryan has looked very good this season. Drew Brees is racking up stats, as he always does. Phillip Rivers is trying to lead a charge for the Chargers. No pun intended there. Kaepernick taking those knees during the national anthem, standing for something. Kidding, of course. But anyway, this MVP race is kind of weird because nobody's standing out as a player through all weeks of the season this far. And it's not like college football where you have somebody dominating every single week like you see with Lamar Jackson from Louisville. And we will get to the Heisman race in a little bit. I just want to say that, it's really difficult to find that player out here. I cannot think of anybody at the top of my head who has really played consistently amazing football. Carson Wentz really has been playing well. Dak Prescott's not racking up stats. He's just being safe with the football. Zeke Elliott's been very good, but the first 2 weeks did not really play all that well. So you can't really say Zeke Elliott if you're a Cowboys fan. Nobody I can think of when it comes to this, and this is the debate that we're going to have. And this is the debate that needs to be kind of put out there. ODB's had his moments. He's not going to be MVP. That's for dang sure, if you ask me. Like, the only one that makes logical sense right now would be Matt Ryan, because I don't know who else could take that take that role and basically play around with it. Le'Veon Bell, once again, out. Another playmaker who's out 3 games, and even though he's made a big impact since he's been in, he really has not done anything that great. These big names that we are used to seeing or who could be in the MVP talk right now has been out, because I bet Tony Romo would be racking up crazy stats if he was healthy, but he's out. He's a big name player and he's out. Tom Brady once again out 4 weeks. Le'Veon Bell out 3 weeks. How the heck are you supposed to come up with a front runner right now in the MVP race? So that's why I have to go with Matt Ryan, because right now there is nobody else I can say is better than him. Aaron Rodgers is not playing statistically up to par, and right now it's all about statistics when it comes to the MVP race. And right now the statistics look a lot better for Matt Ryan. David Johnson looks good for the Cardinals. I will not lie. Right now, if you take a look at David Johnson in the game going on right now, though, and it's still in the second quarter. They're at the 2-minute warning of the second quarter. He only has 12 carries for 37 yards in this one. So, it's going to be hard to really get a feel for who could be that player. Alex Smith, once again, another player managing the game. Andrew Luck, really went off today. Certainly happy because he was on my fantasy team, and that really that really boosted me quite a bit, considering that I am down quite a bit with with my team only getting 66 points, losing by exactly 1 point. I still have DeAndre Hopkins to play and Denver's defense to play. But, getting 3 total points from my running backs doesn't help. Getting 1 point from Martellus Bennett. I'm just glad Tavon Austin had a breakout day. Anyway. But, like I said, Andrew Luck doesn't have the offensive line, the supporting cast to really have that ballot. Here's a name for you, though, for MVP race, and this could come back. Well, I said Brady. Brady could be in the race at the end of the season. He probably will be. I said Ryan, and he's a front runner right now for me. Here's Derek Carr. Derek Carr, statistically, the last few games has looked really good. Not tremendous, but really good. Certainly very. Let's just take a look at this season right now. He has 1,608 yards, so that's 1,608 yards thus far this season. And if you take a look at his pass attempts, he's 227. 151 out of 227. That's 66.5%, which is not bad at all for a passer rating of 99.1. 3 picks this season. Not really big, but he's been able to get some touchdowns. 12-3 ratio, of course, there. When you take a look at the past past 3 games. Or sorry, the past 6, all 7 games that he's played. First game against, first game against the Saints. 319 yards, 1 TD. Atlanta, 299 yards, 3 TDs. Tennessee, 249 yards, 1 TD. Baltimore, 199 yards, 4 TDs. San Diego, 317 yards, 2 TDs. 225 yards and 1 TD against KC, and Jacksonville, 0 TDs. Now, he played worse in the last couple games, but, he's somebody to watch out for. And, who else am I going to say? Jay from Miami, who's had a couple good games in a row. Other than that, 214 yards, that's freaking crazy. I should have traded for him instead of trading for Doug Martin. Well, sorry, not Doug Martin. Instead of trading for DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion, because I had the opportunity to in my league. Well, right now we are hitting the 14-minute mark. We'll be back for a quick little final 10-minute stretch. Heisman Watch coming up. Also, we will be talking about playoff picture in college football. This last 10 minutes will basically be a college football fiesta. Be ready for it. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned for some more Basch Sports Network podcast. Ten minute stretch Basch Sports Network here. Make sure you guys check out my other channel, Basch College Football Network. I'll be out every day on on Monday nights, 24 hours before the College Football Playoff Committee releases its rankings. I'll also be broadcasting every single day except for Saturday nights on this channel. Of course, got to get up for church, watch college football. 10-minute stretch starts now. So, Heisman watch here. Lamar Jackson is pulling away, and it seemed like he wasn't going to after that Duke performance. Didn't necessarily play bad, but certainly did not play up to Lamar Jackson caliber. I have to say, though, J.T. Barrett didn't look bad in a loss against Penn State, and people are kind of like saying, oh, JT's not going to win the Heisman. He's not even going to be in New York after a loss. He did not look bad, and the only reason he was sacked 6 times in that game was offensive line. You can't blame him for being sacked 6 times. He did everything he could. Watching that game, he threw the ball away so many times. He made plays running the football that really weren't there at all that kept him from getting sacked. And I'm sorry, J.T. Barrett is still a Heisman contender in my eyes. It's a shame that we didn't have Leonard Fournette this full year. But I mean, if he was in for the full year, he kind of would be banged up a lot more because running right through players like he did against Ole Miss every single day, week in and week out, every single game, I should say, week in and week out, is kind of a tough thing to do. I mean, you try doing that for week in and week out, every single weekend, and keep healthy. Try doing it. I wish, though, that he was in that situation. Also, at this point, Donnell Pumphrey needs to be in New York as a Heisman finalist. Last year, Deshaun Watson will probably get the nod, even though he hasn't had the biggest statistical year this season. And, it's not looking good right now in terms of other people winning the Heisman. It looks like it's Lamar Jackson's to lose. If he gets injured, God forbid, if you're a Louisville fan, Lamar Jackson gets injured, and I do not hope for that because Lamar Jackson, crazy good athlete, and I'd hate to see that talent go to waste. Or if Lamar Jackson just starts playing very bad, everybody has his number, yada yada. I don't expect that happening the next few weeks, especially if you take a look at Louisville's remaining schedule. Don't really see Houston as a threat for one, so don't talk to me about what you can see with Houston. But you take a look at this remaining schedule for Louisville. They got at Virginia next week, at Boston College, 2 W's easy. Wake Forest, that defense is scary. Then you got at Houston and Kentucky. They win these next 3 games. They are just hoping for Clemson to have 2 losses in conference, hopefully to either a Wake Forest team who will be depleted probably when they get to play Louisville, or to Pitt, or whatever the case may be, because Pitt is pretty dang good. They just got to take care of business against Houston and Kentucky, and they're good. But I don't see anybody that can slow down Lamar Jackson in this case, because we're talking Heisman talk right now, not playoff situation. We're talking Heisman. So when you take a look at individual player, even if Louisville gets another loss, which they shouldn't because they don't play another ranked opponent the rest of the season, they only played 2 thus far. Even if they don't win all of their games, I don't see any of them absolutely shutting down Lamar Jackson, where Heisman talk is absolutely out of the door. People have brought up Jalen Hurts, and statistically, he doesn't fit the bill, if you ask me, but he is the leader of the number 1 team in the country. You can't argue that. At this point, though, I don't see Jalen Hurts as the top 4 players who should be in New York and it probably will end up being top 5. I'm just going to say the top 5 right now for me, even though one of them has not been statistically good, and that is my 5th guy. You have Lamar Jackson, Donnell Pumphrey, Jabril Peppers, JT Barrett, and finally Deshaun Watson. I just don't see Jalen Hurts getting there, at least this year. You have your chance, young freshman. But, however, these guys, with Alabama and Jalen Hurts, they certainly have some time ahead of them to get Heisman Trophy for this young dude. Now I'm talking about the quick playoff picture. If you take a look at this, top 6, you got, and I know this is the AP poll, and it may not be looking like this in the College Football Playoff Committee's eyes, and if it doesn't, for sure, we will be talking about a different discussion next Wednesday, or Tuesday night, I should say, because it will be a broadcast Tuesday night, or Wednesday, when you guys will be watching that. A week from Wednesday morning is when most of you guys will be seeing this. But right now, if we just go off of what we have, I think Ohio State could jump if it's 1 Alabama, 2 Michigan, 3 Clemson, Washington 4, Louisville 5, Ohio State 6. That is assuming that all of them are going to win, but I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, you got Washington with the test on the road at Salt Lake City. College game day going to be there. Clemson's got Florida State. Michigan's got Michigan State, which is always going to be a tough game. Alabama's got his final. Well, actually, Alabama's on a bye. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Alabama is on a bye this week, so I mean, look out for that bye, Alabama. Watch out; they could possibly sneak you. Kidding, of course. So those 4 teams have tough tests. Louisville doesn't have a tough test. Ohio State has Northwestern, who's been trending lately. Louisville, once again, like I said, has on the road at Virginia, and Virginia has to pull off some sort of miracle to win that game, if you ask me. So if you take a look at it, though, building resumes in if Ohio State, once again, the winner of the Ohio State and Michigan, assuming the winner of that wins the Big Ten Championship, because I believe that Wisconsin won't get to the Big Ten Championship. I believe Nebraska will get the nod over Wisconsin. But I could be wrong. Wisconsin, okay, let me correct myself. The winner of this weekend's game, this big matchup in the Big Ten West, is going to the conference championship in my eyes. And that is the winner of Nebraska and Wisconsin. If it's Wisconsin, I could see Wisconsin beating either Ohio State or Michigan in the Big Ten Championship. Now, here's the thing I look at, though. With Michigan, it's not going to be in the big house this time. It's going to be at a neutral site, which is kind of a downgrade for Michigan. With Ohio State, it's kind of an upgrade because not only is it a neutral site, but these last 2 games, weather has played some sort of factor. There was a pick on the goal line that kept Ohio State out of the end zone. Dakota Dixon with the pick, I believe it was. I could be wrong. In the end zone anyway, when it was torrential downpour. That lasted like 20 seconds, and that was only during that play, so that played a factor. And then it was drizzly, rainy, 35-degree wind chill in Happy Valley. You know, these last 2 games for Ohio State has been really tough. You kind of had to know if you could see Penn State playing as well as they did and Wisconsin playing as well as you did, and you tell me both of those games are going to be close. I say, well, shoot, if Penn State is able to run the ball a little bit on this Ohio State team and able to stop Ohio State, most important part, and makes a lot of special teams plays, Wisconsin was able to run the ball and was able to constantly stop Ohio State at least for one half, and a lot of the game they were able to stop Ohio State. I say, well, they will probably get one of those wins. They will probably get another loss as well. I would say they go 1-1. They split those games, and that's exactly what happens. You just didn't know that, you know, Wisconsin would run the ball better than what they have all season, and you wouldn't know that Penn State would play as well as they did. So, playoff picture right now, it looks like Ohio State controls their own destiny. Louisville needs a lot of help. They need people to start losing. They need Washington to lose. They need Alabama to lose. They need Clemson to win. As crazy as that sounds, they need Clemson to win to look good. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. This ends this broadcast, and I will see you later. Make sure you subscribe and like this video, by the way.